let's take it a little bit further. They say with this this Young's double slit experiment, the quantum physicists, that you get a strong and you get a weak measurement. So they say that the machine is a weak measurement. They put the machine up, and the machine was shooting out the electrons. And as the machine was shooting out the electrons, it behaved like a wave. That was a weak measurement. But the observer, coming in with his beliefs, with his attitude, with his precepts, his ideas, his perceptions, coming in with that was a strong measurement. Now, I'm going to show you two pictures. This picture that I'm showing you now is that this is a molecule. You've got the electrons all around, and you've got the nucleus there with the proton and the neutron. And I've been told, if that is what you've learned, which most people have learned until very recently, they said, well, electron must be a particle. What they say nowadays, they say it's not like that anymore. This is what they see. They say the electron is actually like a cloud. It's a cloud, and they don't know what the electrons are doing. They're popping in and out reality. And they go so far to say that the electrons may even pop out of this dimension that we know into another dimension, and then pop back into this dimension. It's actually like it's like a cloud. The moment you go there to observe, let's say we observe with a machine, it's a weak measurement, it acts like a wave. The moment an observer comes in there and says, no, it must be a particle, the moment he measures, the electron becomes a particle. So what they say is, it's actually just a cloud. With a weak measuring device, it becomes a wave. With a strong measuring device, the physicist, with his perceptions, ideas, beliefs, and so forth, it becomes a strong measuring device, making it a particle, material. Otherwise, before that it was a wave. Before that it was just like a cloud. Don't know what was going on, popping in and out reality. So, we can say it like this. The cloud is like an idea. Okay? And there are a lot of ideas in this life about any subject. You know, you take prosperity, take wealth, take poverty, take health, sickness, our DNA and how we do things. Any subject, there are literally hundreds, if not thousands of ideas about that specific subject. Okay. The moment we start to think about it, from the cloud of ideas, it becomes a wave of possibility in your life. That is a weak measurement. And a strong measurement is that from all the waves of possibility, it becomes a reality in your life. So we have a cloud of ideas, starting to think about it, weak measurement, becomes a wave of possibility, and then as we start to believe it, as we start to talk about it, as we bring our attitude into that, it becomes a strong measurement, converting into material, into a particle. Okay, so let me put it this way. Our thoughts is the weak measurement. When we think about something, that's a weak measurement. Okay? It's bringing from the cloud of ideas, bringing it into the realm of a wave of possibility. Okay? So, let's say for instance, it's recession, we're battling with our finances, and we've skipped one payment on the car, or on your bond, on your house. You skip the payment. Now, the cloud of ideas is they can come and take your car or take your house back. The bank can come and take your house back or your car back. Let's say that's an idea. Another idea is, no, there'll come new business and we'll make it up next month. Another idea is, you know what, somehow we'll get a miracle. And miraculously we'll get the money to pay. Another idea is, I'll just go and borrow money from my parents. I'll go and borrow money from someone else just to make up. There's a lot of ideas of what can happen. But then as we start to think about all those ideas, it becomes a wave of possibility. And from all the ideas, you will, in your mind, 2 or 3 or 4 may be floating in there, and you will begin to think and ponder and meditate about what's going to happen. And that becomes the wave of possibility. Now, the moment you start to talk about it, the moment you start to say, you know, I think they're going to take the car back. I think the bank is going to take an. I don't know what's going to happen. I can't see even a light in the end of the tunnel. It's just all dark for me, and I think the bank is going to take back the car or the house. The moment you start to talk about it, you've just collapsed off the cloud of ideas, bringing the wave of possibilities 2, 3, or 4 in your mind. Then you start to talk about one, and the more you talk about it, you've collapsed all the possibilities into one state, and that will materialize in your life. Have you ever had a pain? Maybe a headache? You know, you just felt it there at the back of your head, or you just felt the headache here in the front. It was just there. You didn't talk about it, didn't think about it, but as you go during the day, you just feel the headache is there. Okay? Now something happened. Someone else came and said, you know, I had a headache the whole week. And you thought, okay, I also have a headache. And then the moment you say, you know what, I also have a headache since this morning, that moment that headache became stronger. And before you know, before the end of the day, you need to take a medication, you need to take some pills for your headache. But it was just there, didn't really pay attention to it. Something happened during the day. Someone else came and someone else came and told you about their headache. Maybe you need some sympathy. Maybe you just needed to talk about something. Maybe you had a little bit of a fear here in the background. You know, is it going to turn into a migraine? Whatever. And you started to talk about it. And the moment you started to talk about it, just suddenly that pain became more and more. And before you know, you need either to go to the doctor or take some medication. Okay. Now, the scripture that I want to read is in Romans 8:27. It says this, and he who searches our hearts knows the mind of the Spirit, because the Spirit intercedes for God's people in accordance to the will of God. But the piece of scripture that I want to highlight here is the mind of the Spirit. Okay, so what happened in the beginning of creation? The Bible tells us that the earth was void and there was nothing going on. And it says there in Genesis 1 verse 1, 2 and 3, it says, and the Spirit of God, the mind of God, was hovering over the waters, over the deep. It was just hovering there. There was a wave of possibility now covering the earth. What's going to happen next? Okay. So out of nothing, a lot of ideas what can happen, suddenly the mind of God comes through the Spirit and it begins to move and hover over the earth. And God said, let there be light. And the moment God said it, from the wave of possibility, it collapsed into one state. And what He said, that's what happened. And so you had that, just that, in the back of your mind, you had that idea, or maybe just since this morning you had a little bit of a headache, and the moment you talked about it, it collapsed into that one state, and then you had the headache. Okay, and so in Romans, in Proverbs 6, verse 2, it says this, you are snared with the words of your lips, you are caught by the speech of your mouth. So he said, what you're saying, I mean, that's it, you are snared by your words. And I mean, by your words, you know, that holds you captive in that moment, in that one state. Matthew 12, 36, 37 says this, but I tell you that everyone will have to give an account on the day of judgment for every empty word they have spoken. For by your words you will be acquitted, one translation says you will be justified, and by your words you will be condemned. Okay, so this is not about judgment. Now, most people, when they read that verse, they think of someday in the future, in the sweet by and by, you know, you're going to stand before a white throne, and you're going to give account on the day of that judgment, and there's going to be this specific judgment day. If you take the word judgment, the Greek word for judgment is krisis, K-R-I-S-I-S. That's where we get our English word crisis from. So judgment is a crisis. So now let me ask you this. Have you ever had a day of crisis in your life? So let's just take the word judgment out and say, but I tell you, everyone will have to give account on the day of crisis. Now, we all had crises. We had many crises. What's going to happen on the day of crisis? For every empty word that they have spoken. So you've just spoken words. You've just said it. You know what? Oh, I think I'm going to have a headache. Now, by your words you will be acquitted, justified, or by your words you will be condemned. So what he's saying here is that in that crisis moment that you have, that very crisis moment, I'm late a payment on my house, I'm late for a payment on my car, I feel that at the back of my head or here in the front I've got a little bit of a headache. And from that, there are a lot of possibilities. What you're thinking about, what can happen? What can I do in the situation? But the moment you start to speak about it, by your words you will be acquitted. By your words you will be condemned. Oh, you know, I think we're going to lose the car. Oh, you know what, I think the bank is going to take the house. Or, you know what, there will be some way out. I just know there will be some way out. I have no idea how, but there will be a way out. You know what, some miracle will happen. I'm not sure how and where, but I know a miracle will happen. By your words you will be acquitted, or by your words you will be condemned. In the day of crisis. Okay, so we've got a crisis. There's these hundreds of ideas of what can happen. When I start to think about it, it becomes a wave of possibility. When I start to, it's a weak measurement. When I start to talk about it, it becomes a strong measurement, and I collapse it into that one state of what I've just said, or what I've just how I talked about it. So